Something is about to happen. Can you feel it? There's a weight in the air, an unshakable sense that something is moving behind the scenes of the unseen. Your heart has already received the message before your mind can fully grasp it. But God says to you, be silent, because what's coming cannot be revealed just yet. There are moments when heaven speaks, and there are moments when heaven is silent. And that silence is not absence. It's not neglect. It's divine strategy. It's protection. It's preparation. God is working, and you have been chosen for something greater, but not everything can be revealed before it's time. How many times have you felt that stirring inside you? Like something is shifting, something is being prepared, yet God tells you to wait, to stay quiet. It's in these moments that faith is tested, when trust is refined, when patience becomes the key to unlocking the next season of your life. The silence of God is not rejection, it is the incubation of your promise. Think about Joseph. He had a dream, a divine revelation of his destiny, but he spoke too soon. He shared it before the right time, and what happened? He was sold by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sent into slavery, imprisoned for years. Why? Because not everyone is ready to hear what God has placed inside of you. Not everyone around you can handle the magnitude of what's coming. Some will misunderstand, some will reject you, and some will try to stop you. But listen, just because they don't see it doesn't mean it won't happen. Just because it's silent now doesn't mean God isn't working. Joseph was not abandoned. He was being positioned. Every delay was divine. Every setback was part of the setup. God was waiting for the exact moment to bring him into his purpose. And when the time was right, he was exalted from the prison to the palace in a single day. That's how God moves. And now he is telling you, wait, be silent, trust. Have you ever felt like something big was about to happen, but God told you to keep quiet? Like you had a revelation burning inside of you, but every time you tried to speak, you felt restrained? That's because some things must be sealed until the appointed time. Some blessings can only be birthed in silence. Some breakthroughs can only be protected through obedience. If you can feel this shift, if you know in your spirit that something is about to break through, then declare it right now. Type, I feel it, in the comments. Let this be your act of faith, your agreement with what God is doing. Because when the time comes, when the silence is lifted, you won't just step into your purpose, you will be launched into it. The waiting will make sense. The silence will prove to be the strategy. And what God has been preparing in secret will soon be revealed for all to see. Hold on, stay silent. The appointed time is near. Being chosen is not easy. It never has been. From the moment you came into this world, there was something different about you. Maybe you couldn't explain it as a child, but you felt it. You never fully fit in. The way people treated you, the way environments reacted to your presence, it was never the same as everyone else. And deep down, you knew you weren't meant to blend in. You weren't meant to walk an ordinary path. That's the weight of being chosen. When God places something extraordinary inside of someone, the world resists it. People misunderstand it. Some are threatened by it, and others will try to destroy it before it can even take root. The anointing on your life attracts both favor and opposition. The enemy recognizes what God has placed in you before you even do. And that's why, from the very beginning, you faced opposition that others didn't. That's why you've been through trials that most people wouldn't survive. But listen to me, you were never meant to be understood by everyone. What's inside of you is too great for small minds. What God is building in you is too powerful to be explained to those who refuse to see. When God chooses someone for a great purpose, He isolates them first. Before the calling is revealed, before the elevation happens, there's always a season of separation. Look at Jesus. Before He stepped into His ministry, before the miracles, before the crowds, He spent 40 days in the wilderness, alone, in silence, facing temptation, being tested. Look at David. He was anointed as king while he was still a shepherd boy. But did he immediately take the throne? No. He went back. And if you're in that season right now, where it feels like you're being pulled away from people, where it seems like no one understands what's happening inside of you, then you need to hear this. It's not punishment. It's preparation. God is shielding you. He is molding you. He is teaching you to hear His voice in the silence, to trust Him when no one else can see what's ahead. And He is telling you, do not speak before it's time. Not everyone around you is meant to hear what God has spoken to you. Not every person in your life can handle what's inside of you. Some people will celebrate you, but others will envy you. Some will support you, but others will try to sabotage you. Joseph learned this the hard way. God gave him dreams of greatness, visions of his destiny. But instead of keeping them close, he spoke too soon. He shared them with his brothers, thinking they would understand, thinking they would rejoice with him. But what happened? They turned on him. They threw him in a pit. They sold him into slavery, because not everyone can handle what you carry. When you speak before the appointed time, you invite opposition that wasn't meant to reach you yet. When you reveal too much too soon, you expose your promise to those who would rather see you fail than see you rise. And let me remind you of something. There are spiritual enemies listening. The enemy doesn't know everything God has planned for you, but he watches, he listens, he waits for moments of vulnerability. And when you speak too soon, when you give away what God is doing in you before it's fully formed, you open doors for unnecessary warfare. That's why God is telling you, be silent. Move in wisdom. Let Him complete the work in you before you announce it to the world. So now, I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, have I been speaking too much about my dreams? Have I been sharing my vision with people who may not be ready to hear it? Maybe God has been asking you to be silent, not because He doesn't want you to share, but because the battle isn't won yet. You're still being prepared. You're still being positioned. And when the time is right, when the silence is lifted, you won't have to announce anything. God will reveal it Himself. If this message is speaking to you, if you know deep down that this is your season of silence, I want you to declare it. In faith, type, I receive it in the comments. Let this be your sign to trust in God's timing, to wait in expectation, to move in wisdom. Because when He says it's time, nothing and no one will be able to stop what He is about to do in your life. That silence is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is a divine strategy, a shield, a weapon against premature attacks. You may not always understand why God is keeping you quiet, why He is asking you to move in silence, why certain things in your life seem hidden. But know this, the enemy cannot attack what he cannot see. There is a reason why seeds are buried in the ground before they break through the surface. In the hidden place, in the unseen, they develop strong roots. They grow without interference. They are protected from external harm. And when they finally emerge, they are not weak, they are established. What God is growing inside of you right now is not meant to be exposed too soon. Some things must be concealed until the appointed time so that they can mature in safety. If you reveal them prematurely, you expose them to resistance that they are not yet strong enough to withstand. The enemy is not all-knowing. He does not have access to the full blueprint of God's plan for your life. He operates by observation, by watching, listening, studying patterns, looking for vulnerabilities. He cannot destroy what remains hidden in God's hands. Look around you. The greatest movements in history, the most powerful works of God, started in silence. They started in obscurity. Before they were seen, they were protected. Before they were revealed, they were strengthened. When God places a vision inside of you, when He calls you to a destiny that is greater than what your eyes can yet see, He doesn't expose it immediately. He shields it. He allows it to grow in silence, to develop in the unseen, so that when the moment of revelation comes, it is unshakable. Think about Mary. When the angel came to her and told her she would carry the Son of God, she didn't run around announcing it to everyone. She pondered it in her heart. She guarded the promise. She kept it close. She protected it in silence. Why? Because some revelations are too sacred. Even Jesus himself was hidden before he was revealed. For 30 years, he walked in obscurity. The enemy did not fully recognize who he was. He knew the Messiah was coming, but he did not know who it was until the moment of Jesus' baptism, when heaven opened and the Father declared, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." That was the moment of revelation. That was when the battle intensified. That was when the enemy launched his direct attacks, testing him in the wilderness, trying to derail his mission. Had Jesus been revealed too soon? Had he moved outside of divine timing, the opposition could have destroyed the mission before it even began. But he moved in alignment with God's perfect strategy. And that is what God is asking you to do right now. One of the greatest enemies of divine timing is anxiety. The need to rush, the pressure to prove yourself, the desire to be seen before the foundation is strong enough to sustain you. How many people have lost blessings because they couldn't wait? How many dreams have been aborted because they were exposed too soon? Sometimes we speak out of excitement. God places something amazing in our hearts, and we want to share it immediately. We want validation. We want to feel understood. Other times we speak out of fear. We feel uncertain, so we look for reassurance from people instead of trusting God's process. But what if God is saying, wait, protect it, let it grow in silence? There is power in restraint. There is wisdom in knowing what to share and what to keep sacred. Not every idea needs an audience. Not every vision needs approval. Not every plan needs to be announced before it is executed. Look at Joseph. His dreams were real. His calling was real. But he spoke too soon. He shared what was meant to be protected. And the enemy used it against him. His own brothers became his enemies. His own household became the place of his downfall. But when he finally learned to move in silence, when he let God complete the work without rushing the process, his elevation came suddenly. One day in the prison, the next in the palace. Your time is coming. Your moment of revelation is approaching. But don't let impatience make you expose what is still being formed. Now, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what has God asked you to keep in secret? What dream, what vision, what promise needs protection in silence? Have you been speaking too soon? Have you been seeking validation from people when God is asking you to trust Him in private? Maybe this is your season of silence. Maybe God is shielding you, growing you, preparing you away from the eyes of the enemy. Maybe what He is doing in you is so great, so powerful, so sacred that it must remain unseen until the appointed time. If this message is for you, if you know in your heart that God is telling you to wait, to trust, to move in silence, then declare it in faith. Type "I will wait" in the comments. Let this be your moment of surrender. Let this be the moment you decide to trust in God's timing, to move in His strategy, to protect what He has placed in you. Because when the silence lifts, when the moment of revelation comes, you won't have to fight for recognition. You won't have to prove anything to anyone. God Himself will make it known. And when He does, no force in heaven or on earth will be able to stop what He has planned for you. Stay patient. Stay faithful. Move in wisdom. Your time is coming. In the silence, God is working. Even when it seems like nothing is happening, even when everything around you feels still, He is moving things behind the scenes of your life. Just like a seed buried underground, you may not see the growth, but the roots are deepening. The nutrients are being absorbed. The foundation is being strengthened. The invisible growth is the most important part because without it, nothing that rises above the surface can stand. Silence is not inactivity, it is preparation. It doesn't mean God has forgotten you. It doesn't mean His promises have been delayed. It means He is aligning everything so that, at the right time, what He has planned will unfold effortlessly, without interference, without the weight of doubt or fear. Have you ever seen a tree force its branches to grow? No, it follows the rhythm God designed because it understands that impatience ruins the process, but divine timing sustains the promise. And when that time comes, there will be no doubt, no resistance that can stop it, no force that can block what has been predestined since the beginning. There's a time to stay hidden and a time to be revealed. There is a season where God asks you to hold on, but there is also a moment when He commands you to speak. And when He does, doors open, paths align, the right people appear, grace becomes evident, and recognition comes without you having to force anything. What is revealed in God's timing does not need to be explained. It does not need to be justified, because the manifestation itself will be proof that it was God all along. Jesus showed us this clearly. How many times during His ministry did He say, "My time has not yet come"? He knew that everything had an appointed season. Could He have revealed Himself earlier? Yes, but He waited. He waited because He understood that every miracle, every word, every step had to be in perfect sync with the divine plan. And when the time came for Him to fulfill His mission, He didn't need to announce who He was. His very presence testified to the truth. In the same way, what God is doing in you will not need to be proven or defended. When the right moment comes, your life will be living evidence that He was in control all along. But until that time comes, He asks you to guard it. Guarding does not mean doubting. It does not mean hesitating. It means protecting. Just as a baby cannot be born before its development is complete, there are things God has placed inside you that are still being formed. Dreams, projects, ministries, ideas, transformations that cannot yet be shared because they are in a phase of internal growth, of spiritual maturity. And if they are exposed too soon, they can be suffocated by the wrong environment, attacked by those who do not understand, or opposed by the enemy who wants to stop them before they reach their fullness. That is why silence becomes a tool of protection, a safe place for what God is building in you to become strong enough to be revealed to the world. Now, I want you to do something. I want you to write down 3 things that God has placed in your heart, 3 promises, 3 dreams, 3 directions that you feel He has given you, but that you have not yet shared with anyone. And I want you to keep them safe. Don't talk about them. Don't seek validation from people who may not understand. Don't try to prove anything. Just write them down and present them before God. Pray over them. Ask for discernment about the right time to speak. Ask for wisdom to know when to remain hidden and when to step forward. Because when the right moment arrives, you won't have to ask, you will know. Life itself will show you that the time has come. And when that day comes, you will realize that the waiting season was not wasted time. It was preparation time. What God has for you will not be small. It will not be temporary. It will not be fragile. It will be something that lasts because it was built on the rock, on certainty, on the unshakable foundation of His will. If this word speaks to you, declare it in the comments. I will wait for God's timing. Because those who wait on Him do not get frustrated, do not rush, do not lose their promise because of impatience. They trust. And because they trust, they are rewarded with something far greater than they ever imagined. God has not forgotten what He promised you. Every word He has spoken over your life, every dream He has placed inside you, every vision that has burned in your spirit, it is still alive. But He needs you to trust Him. He needs you to remain in faith. He needs you to hold on and keep silent, because the battle is not over yet. There are still things being aligned. There are still pieces being moved. And if you rush ahead, you might step out of the covering that is protecting you. What you are carrying is too great to be exposed before its time. What is growing inside of you is too powerful to be placed in an environment that cannot yet sustain it. That is why God is asking you to wait, to trust, to guard what He has given you. Because when the moment of revelation comes, nothing will be able to stop what He is about to do. Your exaltation has already been decreed in heaven. The promotion, the breakthrough, the fulfillment of His promises, it is already written. It is not a matter of if, but when. And when the time comes, when the silence is lifted, you will not need to prove anything to anyone. You will not have to fight for recognition. You will not have to force people to see what God has placed inside of you. He Himself will make it known. He will open doors that no man can shut. He will prepare a table before you in the presence of those who doubted. He will take you from obscurity to revelation, from preparation to fulfillment, from waiting to walking in your purpose. So I am here to tell you, get ready. Get ready for the moment when everything shifts. Get ready for the moment when what has been hidden is revealed. Get ready for the moment when God says, now is the time. Because when that moment arrives, no force in heaven or on earth will be able to stand against what He has declared over your life. The waiting will make sense. The silence will prove to have been the strategy. And everything that felt delayed will suddenly come to pass in a way that only God could orchestrate. If this message is speaking to you, if you know deep in your spirit that this is your season of trust, then declare it right now. I will wait in the comments. Let this be your act of faith, your agreement with heaven, your declaration that you are standing firm in God's timing. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Let them know that their silence is not punishment, it is preparation. Let them know that what God has started, He will finish. Because when the waiting season is over, when the silence is lifted, when the appointed time arrives, you won't just step into your purpose. You will be launched into it.